Okay, this is the January 6, 2015 meeting of the Rowley Conservation Commission. This meeting of the Rowley Conservation Commission is hereby called to order under authority of MGL Chapter 131, Section 40, the Town of Rowley's Wetlands Protection Bylaw, and the Stormwater Management and Erosion Control Bylaw. I will now call the roll for attendance. David Delmonico.
Here.
Bob Garner.
Here.
Judy Keys. Sam Strife.
Here.
Arthur Page.
Here.
Kurt Turner.
Here.
Doug Watson.
Here.
Chairing, and we have a quorum present, Mr. Chairman.
I would like to begin by reading a letter into the record from the Board of Selectmen, dated December 22nd, 2014, addressed to me as Chairman of the Conservation Commission, regarding the purchase of Girl Scout land and open space plan update. Dear Chairman Watson, the Board of Selectmen wishes to express its thanks and gratitude to Conservation Agent Brent Bazelak for the work he did in facilitating the town's purchase of the Girl Scout land at 390 Weathersfield Street. Brent spent many hours canvassing this property and researching the various characteristics that make it so unique. The magnitude of his assistance cannot be fully expressed. We also wish to formally convey our thanks and gratitude to Brent for his exemplary work in updating the town's outdated open space plan. Brent worked tirelessly for many months in pulling together records and data for the plan. This plan needed to be updated. We asked Brent to take on this project. Brent accepted this additional work without hesitation and did an excellent job in pulling the project together for the town. Please accept our sincere thanks and gratitude to Brent for his dedicated service to the town. Sincerely, Robert Mary, Chairman, Joseph Perry, Vice Chairman, Robert Snow, Selectman, Jack Cook, and David Peterson, Selectman. And I would just add that I wholeheartedly support that letter and would express the same sentiments to Brett. Great job on both those things.
Here. Very good.
Thank you.
In particular, and not to diminish the Girl Scout land work, but I think the open space plan was just often tedious and really much larger project than any of us had any idea it was going to be, and you slogged your way through it. Can't have been easy. All right.
While we're on that,
Mm-hmm.
where do things stand?
Where's the open space plan? The slog is not quite
Going
over.
further.
Okay, I'm waiting to get, I have to check in with the consultant that previously assisted us, and I was directed to seek an estimate,
Oh, right.
both of time and monetary value in regards to the communication from the state that identified some areas that they felt needed further attention in the plan. So I actually got to check in now that it's after the holidays and see if the estimate is forthcoming soon. But yes, I've been directed to seek completion of that.
Ready? Any other administrative matters before we begin?
Yes, if I may,
There are.
I would request authorization of payroll for 2 weeks of service here. And for your review, that's the hours sheet so far.
6th, okay?
And if I may, have any expenditure for cable as we're upgrading the computers in the office. Let's see, for your ensuring that that's the receipt. And if I may, while signatures are going around, there's a Merrimack Valley Planning Commission meeting tomorrow morning with the DPW directors and the subcommittee that deals with stormwater. So the selectmen asked me if I was available, and I would just check with you about permission to attend the meeting.
That's fine with me. I think we talked about this before, maybe not. Maybe it's a
No,
different
not
meeting.
this one.
Okay.
Well, yeah, I don't think so, because I think they set the date on this before the holidays. And
I think I just saw that email because I remember the DPW location.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
If I can just ask everybody, I had a informal verbal inquiry about the commission's possible feelings on a landlocked forested wetlands parcel, or at least according to the state overlay, it indicates that it's, the forested property is at least half forested wetlands. And the inquiry as to what the commission's thoughts or concerns might be in regards to it being fenced and pigs being allowed to roam the property.
How many acres, Brett?
You know, I didn't get into those specifics, I apologize. It was at least 10.
How many pigs, you know?
The gentleman did not go into specifics. He just said he would not be operating it as a piggery. I believe we're talking somewhere between 6 and 12, but we didn't have that specific discussion. But basically, they would be sort of free-ranging within fencing this property.
And he intended to put them in the whole property or the portion that's,
This is just a verbal
Just
inquiry
what
that
do you
lacks a
think?
lot
Yeah.
of specifics
Yeah.
at
Okay.
this point in time.
Where's the property in question, more or less?
More or less, it's in an area off of east, I think, of Newberry Road. So, but it has no frontage, so it's one of these back parcels. At least two properties removed from any frontage, and
Is there a road to it?
no.
How's he gonna get the pigs? in?
Well, that is, yeah, that's one of the issues, but,
Pot-bellied pigs.
Pigs are pretty
he's
smart.
gonna,
Just tell me how we go.
Google,
um,
I mean Amazon.
They escaped.
that's one of the issues. Apparently, they're seeking to figure out some possible use for the property because there's no access, as far as he knows, there's no easement off of any of the abutting properties that allows access, so yes, that would be obviously the first hurdle if one would even possibly consider this, but
And it's privately owned?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's in private ownership. I believe all the parcels abutting it are all in private ownership also. But I've obviously never been out there or near there, so I can't comment as to whether there's any actual woods roads or anything that go to this property. But according to the gentleman whose inquiry this is, Cole Desmond, he says that, to their knowledge, there's no recorded easements that give them access.
It's not in the zone 2 area, is it?
No.
Okay.
No, no, it's not in zone 2.
Pigs actually require a lot of attention. You just can't fence them in and leave them. Between water and grain, and they're escape artists.
Yeah.
And once they escape, now you've got a real problem because
Right.
they can damage other land.
Yeah.
But
And rotors.
I would,
Well, that's
I'm
why,
interested in this. but
that's
I
why
would
I'm
want
having
more
this
information.
conversation with you folks tonight, because I didn't want to go by my limited understanding.
A dozen pigs on
Is
10
that they-
acres of land would do very little impact, but
Yeah.
to get off that land, that could do a lot of impact.
They root, they dig in the ground.
I think you need more information, including possibly a site visit.
And a tentative, actually probably a tentative survey of his neighbors.
Right.
Well, but, you know,
That's
the only thing I'd
nothing.
say, I don't know anything about pigs, so
Yeah.
if you know anything
Yeah, I
about me.
raised them quite a bit.
Yeah, is that we're just the Conservation Commission here, and
Right.
I think the only question we would be looking at is, would it affect the wetland habitat adversely or at all?
Yes.
Which is something I don't know the first thing about it. You probably have some idea on that.
Yeah, no, that will change it a little bit, just like down at Heichel's tender crop, you notice with the cows in there, but it actually helps it. You'll notice the trees grow better now and all this other stuff, because they seem to a number of invasive species. But if you put 10 pigs in 1 acre, that's an awful lot, you know.
And if he fences 10 acres, that's a lot of fence.
It's a lot of fence, yeah.
It's gonna, it's, yeah, you know, you can't go in the, they can't go in the wetlands, but
Well,
maybe,
cows
maybe
can.
bordering vegetated.
Big cows can, so,
Really?
Yeah, I don't see why they couldn't.
yeah.
They probably
Now,
would.
does the guy have a 61A?
No.
Yeah.
Not, again, I wasn't given a lot of information. I apologize for that. It was just, I think it was just the initial concept of whether, so.
Yeah.
So basically, in order to
We need more information.
gain any type of sense of this, there's, yeah, so that,
A formal plan.
so
or
you'd be
something.
receptive to hearing more specifics as opposed to
Right.
just outright flat saying, oh, no, wouldn't even consider
yeah.
that.
Oh, no, it's got a right to use its land,
Yeah.
Right.
if you can get to it.
But that, even that's not really our concern,
Right.
nor
Yeah.
is how he's gonna pay for the fence.
Right.
It's really just about what the wetland effect would be, if any.
It is his land.
Again, that's what I told, you know.
So he
Gentleman
says,
comes into the office and just says this stuff, so I have to take a lot of it.
So the biggest thing will be putting up the fence and wetland, and what would the pigs do to the wetland, to us?
and there's the question of access, is that if
Well,
that's
if
over
that's
wetland,
over wet,
then we'd
exactly.
have to think about that. If
Yeah.
he's planning to drive a truck in, and it's surrounded by wetland, that's an issue.
So we just need more info.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know how else he would do
Formal
it.
plan or proposal would be nice.
right.
Or he could come in and talk to us.
And the pigs,
Yeah, it doesn't have to be.
Come in and address us,
Huh?
and just, put him on the agenda.
Well, I think it would be
informally.
good to convey some of the questions that have
Yep.
arisen out of our discussion tonight.
Okay.
To him before he
Yeah,
gets any.
yeah, then let him make the decision as to, how much he wants to.
and the pigs
Flesh
all,
out.
all one sex.
Plus the type of, Russian boars or what, I mean,
Yeah.
no, seriously.
Yeah.
Things with tusks.
Yeah, we could end up with a big problem every time.
Yeah.
Although, Not too many people on that.
For the selectmen,
Oh, yeah.
the town must have some rules
Michael and
on
I used to read
licensing.
them years ago.
Figures, whatever that means.
Oh, yeah.
Again, not,
Wonder what
that would be normally a
Yeah, Dale made it.
Board of Health
or zoning board.
concern.
I wonder what,
Actually, I think the town has a regulation against it.
what is the, what zone is that landed in? Ag, the outlying
It's gotta be
agricultural, right?
It's gotta be.
Can't be anything else, so.
Yeah,
So generally,
Uses.
ag uses would be
Yeah.
permitted, as far as that goes.
Right.
Well,
Yeah, we're just being asked the question
Sure,
about
okay,
possible impact to wetlands, and so
all right,
need more info.
all right.
Thank you.
That brings us to 7:45, unless there's more administrative items. Is the 7:45 item, where are we on that? This is the continued notice of intent for 56 Newburyport Turnpike, map 7, parcel 12, Mark Savory, proposed removal of trailers, etc. And I have a letter from Liz Dupre of Clearwater Environmental dated Friday, January 2nd, 2015. Hi Brent, could you please request extension from the commission for 56 Newburyport Turnpike, map 7, parcel 12. We recently met with planning board representatives and the project is making progress. However, we will not have a completed review of new plans from the planning board before the January 6th meeting. Signed, Liz Dupre. She doesn't say what she would like for continuance, so we're
I
gonna
would
just assume 3
assume
weeks.
the next meeting of January 20th, I believe.
so move.
And a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Against, so it's continued to January 20th, 2015.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, all the rest of the items are administrative, and there are some folks here
Right.
in attendance tonight.
Well, I see Mr. Conley. And who else is here in attendance on what?
I'm here as Laura Kraus for John Coughlin's property.
Oh, okay, all right. You any sense, Brent, of which of these will be faster? We'll do the quicker one first. The return, are there issues around the return to compliance letter?
Probably Mr. Coughlin's project.
The quicker of the two?
I would think so, since I had a phone call at 6 o'clock from Mr. Coughlin, so.
You did?
Yes.
Oh,
so
okay.
we're-
So, and I'm not trying to put you at a disadvantage, because I
Think
know
you
you
might be.
folks hadn't connected with them, but,
For the record, I'm Laura Kraus from DeRosa Environmental Consulting. I'm representing John Coughlin, owner of the property at Forest Ridge. I'm sure that you all know the backstory of this, but I'll give a little bit of history. Back in the spring of 2013, there was some clearing in this area. Route 1 is right here.
Yeah.
There was some clearing in that area that did not have a permit. We were hired by Mr. Coughlin to prepare a restoration plan.
This is the one right on the Ipswich line, am I?
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
the
okay,
front, the
right.
frontage right on Route 1.
Yep.
Okay.
And so we were hired for the restoration plan. The restoration plan involved some invasive species removal. We also did some native planting in this area along the wetland and the buffer zone here, and then a monument was put here, a wooden post with a conservation placard on it to mark that it was a conservation area. All the plants they were installed they were installed June of 2013. They've had 2 growing seasons to become established, and they've done really well. The area looks really good. And so coming here today, we wanted to just discuss the plantings, tell you that we think that they're doing really good. Brent has more information now than we do, so I don't know if you wanna
Brent?
share.
The request is for a return to compliance letter, which the commission usually considers issuing if a enforcement order has been appropriately responded to, and the enforcement directive that sets forth various criteria for what needs to occur to remediate or restore or replicate impacted wetland resource areas is finalized. So I have reviewed the reports that were submitted. There was 2 monitoring reports and then the final request for this letter of return to compliance. I had 2 questions that I emailed to your comrade Tyler Ferrick the other day. The first question was, I noticed that there was reference to a temporary irrigation line that was installed in order to water the plantings and assure the establishment of the herbaceous cover and stuff. So in my conversation with Mr. Coughlin just a short time ago, he said that the line is intended to be taken out, and that certainly that would be done as soon as ground conditions are sufficient for it. He said what they did was take the pre-existing line that comes over by the large sign at the front of his project, and they put a T into it and brought apparently two heads over to irrigate the planting area, and that they had no intentions of it being permanent, and if we wish to see it removed, because it does apparently go actually into what we want to be a no-cut, no-disturbance area. So that's the so that, and I think that would be your recommendation too,
Yeah,
not to have
absolutely.
built infrastructure
Absolutely, yes.
into that area, which was supposed to be natural and left natural.
Mhm.
The other question that we didn't know is whether your firm was proposing some type of continued monitoring or any type of activity in that area. If we close things off today, we would, by the very nature, want it to return to its status of being no cut, no disturb, so therefore not be sanctifying any continued cutting, pruning, trimming, or other vegetative disturbance.
Did you by any chance, did you talk to Coughlin about this at all, or just the irrigation
Well,
line?
well, no, I did talk to him about that. Neither he nor I knew what DeRosa might
Right,
be
okay.
recommending tonight in that
Sure.
regards, but both he and I seem to have the same idea that that there was a suppression of invasive species involved in this activity, and that there also had been, with the commission's approval, there had been a reduction in the,
Greenbrier?
yeah, but I was trying to think of what the appropriate adjective is for it, for the enthusiastic growth of the greenbrier, which apparently was part of the reason that cutting and pruning occurred in the area, because it was snagging all sorts of roadside litter, and they wanted to get the litter out and felt they had to prune the greenbrier to get it. So he and I both kind of agreed that it would seem pragmatic and practical to see how the area went, and if need be in the future, have a discussion if something started to become imbalanced in that plant community, i.e. if the invasive species came back in and started smothering all the native plants that have been grown, or if the greenbrier erupted and started smothering that it would seem to be more appropriate to gauge any future action on what happens on the site, and to come have a conversation, if need be, with myself doing a field inspection, or coming before the commission and discussing if they needed to engage in future plant suppression or trimming or prunings.
Sure. Okay. So this is all new information to me. So I was going to come in today and ask for a continuance of this to the 20th, the January 20th hearing, so we could talked to John,
Mhm.
Mr. Coughlin, about what we're speaking about right now. Like I said, I haven't talked to him about it, and neither has Mike. So I believe, now I don't really know where we stand, but I think I'm still going to request for the continuance because I really want to talk to Mr. Coughlin before I say that
Okay.
we're good.
Yeah, well, if I could jump in here, I don't
Sure.
personally, I can't speak for anybody else, I don't see a need for continuance here. I think that we could approve that with an understanding that, you know, Mr. Coughlin and Brent would talk in the future if it becomes a problem with litter and things like that in Greenbriers. And take action at that time consistent with what you might recommend.
Well, if that's okay with you, Laura, I don't wanna put that on you and put you in an awkward position with your client. So if you feel like you really need to talk to him, that's fine, we're happy to continue it, but I suspect he'd be happier to have it done
Have
with
it closed,
today.
closed out. Yeah, I think I agree. I mean, if you don't see a reason, and as long as, I mean, if some sort of plant eruption happens,
Right.
we will come talk to you and
Right.
make sure that.
Right, we can always
Adjust.
reopen it in one fashion or another if it needs further attention.
Right.
Sure.
And based on recent visits to the site, I mean, it honestly does seem like the density of the Greenbrier has been sufficiently reduced.
Mhm.
The herbaceous ground cover was thick and lush. The planted shrubs did not seem to be, they weren't being utilized and overwhelmed by any tendrils of the Greenbrier. And the bittersweet that was removed did not seem to be making its presence. I know that you folks have gone back in there, either yourself, Tyler, or Mike, and have hand-pulled the ones that weren't that sprouted back up after the initial
Yeah.
preparation of the site. So, yeah, hopefully I accurately represented the discussion back and forth that I had with Mr. Coughlin.
Well, if you're okay with that, I am too, I agree with her. This doesn't seem like something that we should have to make you come back on. Anyone have a different sentiment? So in that case, I guess what I would need is a motion to issue a return to compliance letter consistent with the discussion we've just had.
So move.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Against? Thank you.
Thank you.
No, I didn't remember exactly how to fill in that line, it's just. Minor, I guess that's it. The one that we had was the one with the school, it was frankly as a minor matter. All right.
Next item is Fennel Drive.
Next item, we can make Fennel Drive since Mr. Conley is here, and
I
I
will
wish to.
recuse myself.
Mr. Sam is going to recuse himself on this one. This is on the agenda as notice of violation right-of-way private on Fennel Drive, map 28, Stephen B. Conley, with relation to gravel erosion off the roadway into the buffer zone. Mr. Conley, welcome. Thank you. Brent, can you bring I know I've had a couple of conversations with you about this. You want to bring the commission up to speed on it and any recent conversations you might have had with Mr. Conley?
Well, actually, I want to make sure for the record, I was told to make sure that the commission is in possession of various emailed correspondence that we have received from Mr. Lazares. There was also an attachment that has a number of different pictures in it that came to the commission. And I was just told to make sure that the commissioners know that this material was sent into the office and that it's available and that it's part of the record.
So you've been out to the site?
So, yes, so I have been out to the site, and I went to the site on December 18th after we had received a fairly substantial downpour, and there is some eroding. This is the same area that has been problematic in the past on Fenno Drive. In the past, Mr. Conley had made provisions and had embedded pine trunks in the side of the road to act as a barrier and a dam, because, well, and I'm gonna talk about the end of Fenno Drive where Lower Pond Road comes and intersects right across from Mr. Gagne's residence. And then the runoff coming down off the hill, I guess it's from Mansion Drive, apparently gets concentrated, Lower Pond Road, it concentrates there and it doesn't get off the road, it comes down onto Fenno, and you can see at least from one or two of my pictures being passed around, that it then gullies and concentrates on the southeastern side? That'd be southeastern side.
East.
Right, or eastern side of Fenno Drive. So anyway, so we get some gullying, some rilling, it brings gravel down. The pine tree trunks got overwhelmed, the gravel filled up the space behind them, and so much was coming down that it went over. So, so there is an erosion problem there, and we've seen this in the past very sporadically, not on a regular basis. And so there is an amount of gravel that has been washed off the roadbed onto basically buffer zone of bordering vegetated wetlands for the most part. It may or may not be a square footage that might be equivalent cumulatively to maybe this tabletop. And can more than likely be handled by just being shoveled off the surface when ground conditions have thawed so that it isn't frozen in place. And the side of the road could benefit from having some straw wattle or something put there, but my suggestion when I talked to Mr. Conley the other day was that we possibly get together on site and with his permission, go see what's happening that is concentrating the runoff off of Lower Pond Road and see if there aren't some opportunities to divert or retain further back up so that it doesn't get so concentrated. And I'm sure you're probably tired of seeing your good maintenance of that roadway kind of dashed to pieces when we have a storm like this. With good material going off the road that then can't be spread and stuff. So there is an order of conditions. The order of conditions that was issued for maintenance, maintaining the gravel roadway, calls for appropriate use of erosion control, and Mr. Conley had been maintaining in spots that we previously identified as being weak points and needing erosion control in place. He had been doing that.
So I guess the only that all sounds fine to me, but the only question I have is, are these timbers that we, or logs or whatever, that we approved installing there, are they really the best choice at this point? Because it doesn't seem like they worked very well for this type of a storm event. Is there something that would work a little better?
Well, if they had the material removed that accumulates behind them,
Yeah.
so that they would then, and basically the gap between them plugged so that they would retain things a little bit, and that could possibly...
But they kind of overtopped from what the pictures...
Oh, well, they
did.
definitely overtopped.
The velocity of water coming down off of that hill.
Right.
Would-
And this was
would have
a...
beaten out Hot Top.
And this was a significant gullying event,
Right.
Oh, yeah.
too, so it's not...
Well, yeah, I'm really just asking the question.
Right.
Because they're somewhat impermeable compared to other choices.
Right.
So water doesn't pass through them, it just...
They're meant
backs
to
up.
act as a berm,
Water
Right.
body.
basically water bar, retain the sediment-laden water behind them and allow the sediment to drop, and then hopefully for the water just to percolate through. But yes, the volume from this storm was vastly in excess of anything, and so that's what happened.
Right. Okay. Mr. Conley, anything you'd like to add?
I know you guys are being put in a position here that you have to act on every single complaint. But I'm pretty sure you're not getting complaints from the majority of the people on Fenno Drive. You're getting it from one person, all right? Unfortunately, this is in the court system, and I'm going to believe that no matter what I do down there is going to be up to scrutiny by this individual. And he's using you guys as a means to an end, and that end being a favorable decision from the courts and making me look bad. And unfortunately, you guys are involved here. I am doing the best I possibly can because I have nothing else to do but deal with Fenno Drive. Before this storm, I notified the commission that I would be down there. I notified Brent that I'd be down there. I think that's part of my conditions in the permit that you guys gave me. It didn't sound like the commission wanted me down there at the time because the rain was coming. Had I not gone down there, the damage to that road would have been excessive. If you look at the area around the bridge, which was my concentration because of the stream, okay, I spent about $400 worth of material to get that area up a little bit higher to pull the water away from that area. I see that as a plus. I did my job. I had a permit to do that, and I've got the stream's best interest in mind. Okay? Unfortunately, there's a lot of water that comes down the hill, and the area that we're talking about has been graded, in my mind, perfectly to handle the situation. I put most of the stuff back in the gully, all right? Now, there are 3 areas that we put erosion control in, and those are the areas that the water is concentrated. Where the logs are, I have flattened that area out the best I can to make sure that the soil stays on the road and the water washes off the side. But there's been a certain degree of sabotage down there to the things that we put in, and I'm sure you've seen that with your own eyes, Brent. Somebody has been slashing the erosion control, the sock that's down there. Somebody's cut it right down the middle with a knife, and it's compromised. Somebody's also been driving off the shoulder of the road in the area where the logs are. Those logs are working perfectly, except for the fact that people drive over them. Now, who is doing this? I've got a good guess, but I cannot prove it. But I think I'm spending enough money down there to be responsible to make sure that road serves its purpose and also preserves any wetland down there. Apparently, there's evidence that I'm not doing that because now I have an enforcement order in front of me. Again, I do not think that it's warranted, all right? It looks to me like it's official, and that's going to go against me in the future. Nothing I have done down there positively is going to help me. It's coming in front of this meeting, in front of you guys, that's going to hurt me. And I think that's unfair, and I'm kind of getting sick of it. But I don't know how to combat it. I don't even know how to respond to this. Okay, I get a 24-hour notice to come down here to a meeting. I'm not able to get legal counsel. It sounds like this is pretty one-sided. And I don't understand it for the life of me. And if you went down there, Brett, I would hope that you would see what's going on. Now, I can't prove any of this, and there's really not a lot I can do about it, except go back, on my dime and fix it all again. And it's going to be a continuous problem. Right now, everything is stabilized down there. The gullies have been fixed. The road is drivable, which is the only thing I want out of this. All right? For the safety of the residents at Seaview. I have to do that. I have to deal with this hassle. And every time I go down there, Mr. Lazarus is out there with his camera, every single time. Getting in the way of the machine, taking pictures all over the place, and now you guys are helping him. And I think it's very unfair. And I got one thank you for the maintenance of that road last week. One. From one of the people that live on that road and walk up and down it every day. Just one thank you for the thousands of dollars I've spent to keep that road open. You want to do something about it? Get the town to accept the road and pave the damn thing. And then you can solve all the problems down there. And there's no more money out of my pocket, and I will be thrilled with that. Now, the violation that you've sent me is on Concom property. Why am I responsible for that? Nobody here is down there with a shovel. Nobody here is putting up riprap and hay bales or concrete barriers to address the problem. Why does it fall on me? It doesn't make any sense. You want me to be responsible for Concom property, then turn the deed over to me and I'll take care of it. I think I've been pretty reasonable to this point, but, you know, I mean, I feel like I'm being attacked here, and I think it's extremely unfair. And it doesn't make any sense, you know, the way we're handling this. This could have been handled informally, and I would have been more than happy to help. There's nothing I can do about it now. It's frozen. It's not going to go anywhere. In the spring, if I get a few more thank yous, maybe I'll restore your wetlands. But I tell you, I'm going to be reluctant to do any more than I have to down there. I'm staying by my permit. I'm not going off the side of the road. I'm staying on the road. If there's any problems, you know, it's not fair for me to be responsible for it. You know, this is Mother Nature. It's going to rain. This last storm, I've had the last 2 weeks just filling in crap that the rain had washed away on my own property. This isn't my property. This is a favor to keep it open. That's all it is. Yes, I have an interest in keeping it open, but man, this is getting ridiculous.
Well, are you willing to work with Brent to try to figure out a diversion so that the problem doesn't keep coming up? It's not a problem we want to see, believe me.
My willingness to work with the Concom is wearing thin.
Well, can I ask you the question again? The suggestion of figuring out a way to have this gullying, the source of this water, not happen, as opposed to having to fix it, seems like it's in everybody's interest.
You can get a treatment facility up the stream to address all the water coming off the hill. You're not going to efficiently solve the problem unless the road is paved.
I
And it
understand you're
has
not going to
formal
completely
drainage,
solve the problem.
and the
but-
water is going to end up going into the stream, period. It's going to eventually make it there. You're not going to solve that problem. There's no, you know, I'm doing the best I can to address it with natural materials. You know, we're using crushed sand and rock down there. Not, and I could put down crushed hot top, but nobody's going to want that there. There's no way to address this problem any more efficiently or effectively than I'm doing it right now. And I would hope, when I leave this meeting, you will allow me to continue my maintenance and adhere to the permit that you gave me.
Who actually owns the road,
You guys own half of it.
and you the other half?
I own maybe a 1/16 of it up the street. Mr. Lazarus has got one side, you got the other.
Aren't there more abutters than just the two of you? Is it three of us?
There's Lazarus, he owns both sides of the bridge, right down to Gagne. The other side is you guys, and I think there's maybe a quarter or less than that that's, I'm not sure who moved into Rasmussen's house, but they now have that problem. Or Rasmussen still has the title to that sliver. I have no idea.
If I can say so, matter of fact, several years ago, Brett, you and I met up there to make sure that the fill, Steve was accused of putting dirty fill in, so I went down with Brent and we checked it. It's bent back, clean, it's what I use in the state, what I use in all the wetland areas. And I have personally seen the signs where somebody has sabotaged by driving over the edges. And I don't know who would get a big thrill out of that, but that was brought to my attention at that time. So I think what it is we're being forced in the middle of a spitting contest.
Well,
Can
not
I
for the
just-
first time.
I just want to point out that we did not issue you an enforcement order.
I have an enforcement order on my computer.
Oh, it's a notice of
I
violation.
sent you a notice,
All right,
I
notice
sent
of
you a
violation.
notice of violation, which is,
Quoting MGLs and everything else, it's
Well-
official to me.
yeah, I didn't say it wasn't unofficial, but it's a notice of violation, which is basically just the invitation, okay, there's a problem that we think the permit calls for steps to be taken, and we want to work with you to do the steps. And I don't mind also sharing with you that Commissioner Turner and I, in the past, have shoveled outwashed gravel off of the Conservation Commission conservation area that is there. So I would have to defer to the commission to direct my actions, but I'm happy to meet
Did
you
you have
out
a
on the
permit to
site.
do that?
Yeah.
Well, since we were removing eroded roadbed materials and replacing it on the roadbed,
So you didn't have a permit to do that?
No,
we
didn't.
weren't altering, we were unfilling. You
I
don't
see.
need a permit for unfilling.
There's no rules against that.
It's the
That's the
filling
problem.
that's not allowed, not the unfilling.
Now, again, Mr. Connolly, I wish we could figure out a way to have the problem not keep happening. I realize it's the weather, but the weather's gonna always be here. And if we're gonna get gullies in the road and gravel on the Concom land and all that, the solution, isn't to keep shoveling it off the land. The solution is, I've gotta lie someplace else.
In my mind, that is a very, very small problem based on the amount of water and the amount of gravel that comes down that road. That area, you're talking maybe 3 or 4 or 5 gallon buckets of gravel.
I understand.
It's a minor problem that's now a focus, and I'm the violator. That's the part that's getting me.
I mean, the real way to mitigate a problem like this, a civil engineer would understand this, is, the water is a problem. The water is a problem because probably of the confluence, the topography of the area. The only way you're gonna handle that, quite honestly, is probably with subterraneous type, containers or something like that, a drainage, not a ditch.
Under drains.
Yeah, exactly. They're not gonna do that. He's not gonna pay for that. And that ain't gonna happen until the town really decides to make the road their responsibility.
Which is,
Which is where, that's the hard place we're up against,
and
so to speak.
they're not
That's
gonna
what
do
we-
it because we ask them to.
They
don't.
Yeah.
That is not gonna be the justification for doing it, for spending the money.
And frankly, I think no matter what he does, or any one of us for that matter, everybody's gonna be back here again, and again, and again.
One rainstorm.
I was gonna say, this has been a while though since this
This is-
happened. I mean,
This is like a rainstorm, a rain event though.
I understand.
And the last
that,
one
which
was
is
the-
which is why I suggested
But the
going
last
out
one was
there.
what rain event?
The one
The
before.
last time we had this issue with
Was it the
gravel
Mother's
was a
Day?
couple years ago.
Was it that?
At least 2, if not 3.
I
I
thought it
would
was the
actually have to
Mother's
look
Day.
it up.
Wasn't that 3 ago? Yeah, every 3 or 4 years it's gonna rain like this, or
Yeah.
more. But
I can usually stay ahead of it.
Yeah, I know.
If I stop, what's it gonna look like?
Right.
Oh, yeah, it's,
I,
forget it.
you're preaching to the choir here. We get it. But, you know, we
Well,
can't get
if
the
you're
town
gonna-
to
if
pave the
you're gonna-
road, and we
If you're gonna
can't.
cite me with a violation, then every single car that rides down that road, you gotta do the same thing with. Cause then, as soon as you hit a pothole, you got what, a couple of pints of sand into the wetlands.
Well, I mean, I think in general, you've managed to maintain that road in such a way that doesn't happen.
Well,
Which
thank
is
you,
not easily done.
I appreciate that.
When I first moved to town, there were huge potholes in that road, and those seem to have significantly diminished. I
Over
mean,
the last 30 years of maintenance, yeah.
Back in those days when I was referring to, I used to have to drive around the edge, and that's possibly how the edge gets deteriorated if there's
The
huge,
worst
huge
that
puddles.
road has ever been was when I was down here trying to get a permit to keep doing it.
Right.
That's the worst the road has ever been.
And it's gotten steadily better since. Understood.
So what are we gonna do?
As I said, I think Brent's idea of trying to figure out if there's some way to ameliorate the water flows so this doesn't happen again seems to me the best thing. I'm not, when I suggested that the logs weren't appropriate, I didn't really suggest that, I just asking that question. If there's a better way to control things there, then we could use that. But if the logs work, hey, that was our recommendation, willing to stand by it, as long as they're working.
Well, if those logs don't work perfectly, there's gaps between them occasionally and from the water, and the water will go under. In this case, it's gone over as well, and there's some way we could supplement that with some.
The only purpose the logs serve are to keep the gravel back in the road.
I
Right.
understand.
Once it gets to the flat, the soil stays on the road
Drops
and the
out,
water
yeah.
runs off.
Right.
As slow as I can possibly get it. But on that downslope, you're gonna get your rut every time it rains. And then it goes another 20 feet, and then they push it back. You know, I try and keep as much as I can on the road. I don't wanna keep paying for fill down there,
I know.
so we can
No,
fill up
that's
the
your,
wetlands.
that's your valuable fill going off into the side. That's
Exactly,
so good.
and I can say honestly, we've been minimizing all this. It's a little tiny problem that Mr. Lazarus focuses on, and that's what he's gonna do every single time,
Well,
you know?
yep, you are right.
Is there any way we can supplement that side of the road with additional straw wattle material?
Jersey barriers.
Yeah,
Seriously.
I don't think the straw wattles are gonna hold up over time.
Oh,
Not when you got guys sabotaging it, cutting it,
yeah,
driving
That
over
too.
it.
and with the water flow, those socks aren't gonna stay in place.
Right.
That's
But-
why you get a 1,000-pound log that'll stay there.
So, again, that was why the suggestion was to go upstream and see if there was any strategy up there to possibly diminish, diffuse, to send off, whatever,
I can take a look at it
on
tomorrow.
Lower Pond Road. Maybe there isn't.
What we've done,
Yeah, maybe the rest.
and it has a
Yeah.
capacity,
Right.
the triangle where the gates are, that go
Yep.
down to Lower Pond Road, that triangle will hold a lot of water. And then it'll slowly dissipate because it's all sand there.
Where's this, where?
Where the triangle
Fennel
is, it goes
and-
down to Lower Road,
The corner.
all right? I
It
cleaned
isn't,
that
it isn't a
out.
straight intersection of Lower Pond Road,
So
it's
by
one of
triangle-
those sort of island.
Right,
things.
by triangle.
So if you could
mean
divert the
line.
water into that.
It's being
And then it would be a
diverted. I just
compensation.
cleaned it out last week
Compensation.
so it'll hold a little bit more. We got the cement out of there. I mean, it's all cleaned up.
Right,
It'll
there's some
hold
cement.
a significant amount of water and it'll slowly leach out. But if it pours,
Yeah. Where do
you know,
yeah.
it goes over the road and then creates a problem.
Right.
You know, I could dig that out a little bit more if you want it, but, you know, we
Yeah.
also had a truck buried in there the other day that didn't help things.
Who's trying?
I don't know whose truck it was, but he got towed out of there with a rather large tow truck, and he made quite a mess over there. You know, I just recently fixed that, but that didn't help things at all. You know, that had nothing to do with me.
Was that after this
That was
rain?
before the storm.
Yeah, it might have had an effect on it, because it might have
Well, it
diverted
changed
some
the
water.
angling a little bit.
Well, Sounds like, Art, you're willing to go
I'll-
out there and
I'll- I
take a
can
look.
Go down and take a look and
Maybe
see.
if you and Steve wanna meet there,
Mm.
or, I mean, I don't know, it's up to you, but, that seems like, you know, my feeling is, the water that gullies this out like this comes from somewhere. If you can stop it coming there in the first place, then the problem really goes away. And if this triangle's a good idea, that sounds very sensible.
Well, I
to me.
can't, the triangle has its limitations
Sure it
too.
does.
Yeah, I mean, I could dig it out to 20 feet deep, but I'm sure you don't want me doing that.
Well, and then some truck will fall in it, right?
Yeah, or somebody will, yeah, exactly.
No, but you could do, you could clear it out, dig it out a little bit, and, you know, if you wanted to spend the money, you could put things like a barrier, Jersey barriers there, and kind of partially bury them and contain some of the water more and prevent it from undermining. But that's all on your,
I don't think we'd ask you to do that.
yeah.
But if you're willing to ditch it out a little deeper, that might help.
I'll tell you
You
what,
guys think it
if
would?
you guys will allow me to continue maintaining the road, I will do the best I can to address the problem. But if I'm being forced to do it, it's probably not gonna go over as well.
Right. Well,
And if you tell me I'm doing a crappy job, I'll stop doing it.
nobody's telling you that, Steve.
I say we
No.
work with, Mr. Cromley and let me take a look and see if I come up with any suggestions, or if Brett wants to come down, he, got any suggestions, and we'll try to work with it and see what we
Maybe
can
get a civil
do.
engineer
Yeah.
to boot.
Makes sense to me.
You know, I think,
See, problem comes.
frankly, and I haven't been down there in a while, but from the pictures, it's
See,
very
this is coming
obvious
off
that
the
you've
hill.
been maintaining it well.
Thank you.
You know, and,
Oh, yeah.
you know,
I mean,
what
he
happens
is talking. That goes all the way to Versa.
is just an event of God.
So I think
Weather
we're
event,
Jersey
you
know.
barriers.
And the only way that it's gonna be prevented is, you know, mitigating the problem.
Well, no.
You know, the town isn't gonna
Goes
do it.
downhill.
I know.
Well, the town is gonna pay the
He's got
road.
a septic
I
system.
think that's
over
right.
here.
this up here?
Yep.
But to the extent that we,
Yeah.
the extent that we can, we support you in the maintenance that you're
And what
doing.
happens-
Insofar as we
Oh.
represent the town, we support that. And I think that the town generally does. There may be some people in town who don't, but that's not the majority.
The only way you're gonna do it.
The solution of a hot top road is probably not in the
This is a
cards.
foot or two.
I'm not
Just
for
to
it,
do it way up.
you know?
Way up here.
Cut me some slack, and I'll make sure it's good. But I can't promise you it's gonna be
She's
perfect.
got
Right where it
oh,
takes the
Steve's.
dog
Okay.
leg.
That's, he's got a big septic system over here. I mow that every year.
All right, so,
Right there
Art,
where
you're
it takes the
gonna,
dog leg, if you
can
can
you
push
go
it
up?
up a little bit and put it in.
can you go out tomorrow, or you?
Oh, yeah,
Just
yeah.
pick a day, that doesn't, you know,
Yeah.
whatever. And you'll just be in touch with each other about when,
Yeah,
if you wanna go.
Quite familiar with the area, cause I mowed the septic system and stuff down there, and, I actually mowed the hill, years back.
The hill?
Yeah.
Which hill?
The one actually, you see, this right here. See, this is the road one up the.
Right,
I
okay, yeah,
mowed
that's
that,
what I
'cause
thought,
that's
yeah.
actually,
Yep.
that's way out.
Because that's really where the water is coming down, that way.
Wow, it's coming here too.
Yeah, right.
As you can
This
see, it's
whole
coming down.
expanse.
But a couple Jersey barriers and maybe changing a little bit of elevation, and get it to flow between the septic system and the, it might help.
Where's the septic?
He's got a septic system right here.
There. Yep. All right, well, I think that's
I mean,
about the
obviously,
best solutions
you
we're
don't
gonna
want
come up
sinking,
with
so
today.
it doesn't undermine it, but
Brent,
it's-
do you have
it's
anything you wanna add?
temporary, regardless.
No,
5 minutes?
that was my suggestion, was to
Yeah,
try and
okay.
go out and take a look at it.
All right, and Art, you can report back to us in 3 weeks
Sure.
and
Yep.
we'll see.
I would respectfully ask that any order of violation be retracted formally, if that's possible.
Well, we can't retract the notice, so it's not possible
Right.
as such. But all a notice is a notice. There's no finding against you at this point. And if we don't do anything further, there won't be.
All right, can I have a formal letter stating that?
Well, yeah, but if.
Because I'm gonna have to
Maybe
rebut
just-
this meeting, I'm gonna have to rebut the violation when we finally make it to court, and that would make it a lot easier and less expensive as far as,
Well, yeah, but what I was about to say is, if we can have Art and Brent or whoever else wants to go to this and figure out the mitigation strategy, that letter is a lot easier to write that.
Okay,
Okay.
fair enough. I'll get right on it, Steve.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
All set?
Steve, can I ask you a question?
Out of town
What?
tomorrow morning.
Who's your friend?
Okay, I'll catch up.
A monkey on
This
his
is
back.
Arva.
I think that was probably a day,
This is a condition of my probation and also part of my anger management program. Calms me down.
All right. Well, may the record reflect that he was a calming influence in the course of this meeting. Didn't have one angry word to say.
Good. Then I'm getting better.
I think if the commission wishes to, the commission could vote at this point in time, that based on the discussion, to have field visits and consultations about steps to take to mitigate the erosion problem, that the commission could vote with that, field visits happening or whatever, could vote to direct you to continue the maintenance as directed by the order of conditions. Position two.
You did kind of ask us for that. Yeah, we could certainly do that.
That would be
So,
good.
all right. Is
That
there
that would be,
a motion to?
So move.
Let's see, to, I don't know what the word would be, reinforce,
Well,
reiterate?
allow ongoing appropriate maintenance to the Fennel Drive private right-of-way with conditioned upon field visits and consultations as to supplemental erosion control or steps to be taken to mitigate.
That sounds good. So is that a motion
so move.
and a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All against?
Beautiful. All set?
Okay, yeah,
Thank
all
you.
set, thank you.
And can I get a copy of Mr. Lazarus's artwork whenever you get a chance? It doesn't have to be tonight.
The photos?
Yes, please.
Yep, they were received electronically.
They were sent electronically to me. Do you want me to
You got my
forward
email.
them to you at your Yahoo address that I communicated with
Yep.
you on?
All right.
All right, okay, we'll get them tomorrow then.
We'll consider
Okay,
them.
thank you.
Okay, thank you.
No, I have a mind we haven't thought of addressing the source of the water before now.
You know,
Well,
like we were
before
saying,
he
I don't think
fixed
it doesn't come up very
Mr.
often.
Lazaro.
Takes a heck of a
It's,
rainstorm.
what it is,
Yeah.
we're
We
getting,
caught it.
we're getting
I think it was
used in a spitting contest.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
And,
Oh, yeah.
It was 3 or 4 years ago.
yeah. And they tried to actually force Brett into that before they had their confrontation there a few years ago. And I got involved in that.
I would like to add that there is no evidence, one way or the other, that there was sabotage on the straw wattles. That's been alleged, but we make no finding
Well,
on that.
honestly, yeah,
and
I have-
have
I
no
have-
basis for any determination along those lines.
Yummy.
I agree.
For the record, that is not, that's not our position anyway.
The last item on the status reports is, it just, really, I think this is just a discussion of how to word the enforcement directive with regard to the Main Street Lot 8 property, the Sabatini matter. We had made a decision, closed the hearing, voted, and what we normally do after that, the last time we were here, we did that, is we issue an enforcement directive. And after a few discussions with Brent, we decided that we need to give him, I think we should all try to give him some guidance on exactly how to word that, because this is an unusual, somewhat unusual enforcement.
You should
action.
have in the materials put in front of you tonight, you should draft right in the top right-hand corner,
Yeah.
have a document for your inspection, review and
So
inspection.
big, I didn't even know. I would like to, by way of preliminary observation with regard to this matter, is that I've quickly skimmed this earlier. during the meeting, or before the meeting, and it seems consistent with the understanding that I thought we had reached with Mr. Sabatini at the last meeting that he attended with regard to following up in the areas near the pond where there had been problems, and also with regard to his offering and our sense that it made sense to work to restore some apple trees that were on the basic Brad Street property as you drive into it. What I don't know is whether the selectmen directed us in any way, shape, or fashion, or came to any conclusions with regard to Mr. Sabatini doing additional work as we had discussed and seemed comfortable with on the Brad Street area and the apple trees there. You have received no communication from the selectmen, or did they say anything at their meeting?
The selectmen voted it at their meeting, and I submitted a memo as well as submitting this revised restoration plan, and the selectmen authorized Mr. Sabatini to proceed based on his plan and contingent or based on requirements set forth in the document you're looking at tonight, which is our normal administrative step of providing conditions that possibly supplement or enhance what was set forth in the restoration plan that was submitted to the commission. Basically, the components that the revised restoration plan did not appear to have were inspection, documentation, and periodic monitoring through some period of time to see if the release efforts were effective.
And one of the things...
And it's not just apple trees, there were some other trees identified which are possibly either in the conservation, some of them are definitely in the conservation area, one or two of them may be on the abutting, what had been called the recreational parcel, and the 3 apple trees that are on the, what had been called the affordable housing parcel.
It's all part of the Brad Street acquisition.
Yes, just different.
That was the only point.
Just in different lots.
Yep. And I understand that we, from having been here, that we had compromised our usual preference for 2 growing seasons in view of the give and take of the discussion down to 1 growing season with appropriate reporting, as I think we've spelled out here, and I think that this draft is consistent with my understanding of what we agreed to, or my sense of what we agreed to at that meeting.
Well, yeah, the document was crafted with that in mind, and since there wasn't planting of any native nursery stuff, it seemed that, one season, 1 full growing season should be adequate, although we were looking for having the steps around the freshwater pond consummated by June, I think, when we had a discussion with Mr. Sabatini.
Yeah.
And I think I hopefully expressed those appropriately within the document before you.
Yep. I think so. I think we're good on it, yeah. There was some talk and some back and forth about 2 years, but the way this is written is 1 year, and June 30th for removal, I guess restoration, removal of the plants in the freshwater pond area by June 30th. I think that's specifically what we had agreed upon.
As long as you think it needs anything more than
No, I
1
think
year,
it's-
that's all.
I think it's good. I don't have any comments, any further comments.
I agree.
If you had sent this to me before today, I apologize, I didn't see it.
No, you
today.
didn't, no, this,
Okay. All right. Yeah, it's dated today, so
Due
I
to
guess not.
various activities occurring in the office, this document was crafted and finished, I think, at 6:45.
Okay, well, good. I'm glad you got it done, because I wouldn't have wanted to have it hang on for another 3 weeks.
And the selectmen, based on your actions tonight, this is on to, the selectmen have requested this to attach it to their,
Okay.
what do they call their decision?
Authorization.
Their motion, action motion, or however they.
All right. So do I have a motion to approve the enforcement directive as drafted?
So move.
And a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, no against, and that's that. It passes.
I'm sorry, who seconded that?
I did.
Yes, Mr. Gardner.
I'm sorry, I filled things in on the wrong slot on my sheet.
If I were sharper at my job, I would announce that for you. Motion by so-and-so, but I can't. I've tried and I just can't. It's gonna be up to you,
Yeah.
On tape.
unless someone else wants to take on that job. What did we do with the first one, Forest Ridge Drive? We ended up just approving that, right?
Yes.
We didn't continue it.
Well, you approved the
approved it,
issuance of the
okay.
return to compliance letter.
Okay.
That's
You
not-
said the first one. I was
Yeah,
thinking
no, the first one we did, the second one on the list. Yeah. Okay. All right, that brings us to the end of the permits enforcement status reports.
Well, not really.
No, well, the ones that are on the agenda.
The listed outlines.
Yeah. Okay.
On our list.
Right.
Well,
Our
What else
list.
happened for us?
well, I think it's, nothing against Haverhill, but I sometimes wish our agent in Haverhill would do this stuff, because you sit at a meeting, you make some decisions about things, and then that's the last you hear of it. You don't hear
No.
whether what you wanted to happen, happened, you know, did they follow through, was it, you know, was it successful and stuff, so, and I'm not saying that anything is not done appropriately in Haverhill, please don't take it that way, but I just think, I have an interest sometimes of, you know, whatever happened to that? I don't know. Like, okay, the emergency certification for
For the
the
water
redressing
department,
and re-gravel surfacing of Pingree Farm Road going to the brand-new water filtration plant. I believe I had told you or communicated with you via email that, you know, I passed by and the wattles were being put in, and I met Dana Warren, who was actually out getting leaves off of the roadway, so when they graded it and put the gravel down, it wouldn't get all compromised by having leaf matter mixed in with it. So I just wanted to let you know that,
Feels like there's two.
you know, once they completed their efforts, I stopped by to do a follow-up
Yep.
inspection, and everything seemed to have worked fine.
Looks good.
None of the gravel left the roadway. The straw wattles appeared to be still effectively installed, and it was a much better surface to travel on. So, and since that emergency certification had an ending date of January 3rd,
Oh, yeah.
because they're only good for 30 days. So I just wanted to
Okay.
let you know as part of our, you know, status.
Is that?
Pingree Farm Road?
Yeah.
I think so. It's a town road.
No, it is not. No, it is a maintenance and utility easement.
Oh, you know, that's right, because they had to get
It's not-
permission from the
Right.
Pingree Farm trustees to do
Who
that work.
actually own the
So not
property.
permission as.
In one sense, they
inform them.
don't, yeah, I mean, I'm not sure of the legalese, but there is an easement there.
Right.
And the easement does allow maintenance and the installation of
But they,
electrical.
I remember
Much
they
different than,
did
Columns.
notify them. Well, a
Isn't
little.
that-
Correct, I don't, well, except there's not abutting owners that have this interest to the center of this. It's an easement that was
Oh,
prescribed
yes,
by
yes,
deed
yes.
entirely on the property that is now owned by the Pingree Farm Condo Association.
Right.
Both sides are owned by the condo association, and it's an easement across the middle. right?
Well, there is another abutting landowner, but I don't think the easement, Gene Petrillo, the Petrillos.
Yeah.
I don't know, I would have to look at the Petrillo's deed to know if there's any of the easement on their property, but I'm not sure that there is.
I don't think there is,
I
because.
think it's all, I think the easement is entirely located on the Pingree
Yeah,
Farm Condo.
Because when we approved that last month, it was mentioned that the condo association had been informed, but nothing about the Petrillos. Yeah.
Speed limit is 6 miles per hour. Just an uncommon number.
Not seven.
Not 7, but not
Not
9.
even 5.
Kind of fly to
I
horses
don't know
and
about you,
bicycles.
but I don't think my odometer needle even.
Exactly. I don't
Baby
think-
carriages.
Do you have digital?
First gear. All right, so there's that.
Okay. So now, the tree stand on Pingree Farm Conservation Area that fronts on Boxford Road. Communication, a letter dated December 15th was sent to Mr. Roach, who had been identified by the environmental police officer, Mark Griffin, as being the stated owner of the tree stand, and that he was under the impression that it was on his property. I researched it and determined that through both deeds of the conservation land and deeds of Mr. Roach's property, that the brook that is crossed to get to the tree stand is actually the boundary line between parcels. I have not heard anything from Mr. Roach. Mr. Roach was given until January 15th.
Yes,
He was invited to contact me for a meeting, if he wished to have a meeting, and also invited to provide any information that he wished to provide, prepared by a professional, such as a surveyor, to bolster the statement that the tree stand was on his property, but there's been no communication at all. I have not gotten the certified mailing back, but I also sent first class mail, and the post office did not return it as undeliverable. So anyway, so that's kind of open-ended at this point in time. I just wanted to share with you Mr. Young, who appeared before the commission and has the property on Main Street that has been being cleaned up. And we had the fill that was located on the property that we determined an enforcement order had been issued in 1988, I think it was.
759 Main.
Yeah, 1988, the enforcement order.
This is over on Route 1A.
Across from the lemon tree. I'm-
Oh, yeah,
yeah.
Over towards Newburgh.
So that's just showing that we requested that he mulch it and everything, he mulched it with
Oh, this is the
with
guy that
straw
bought that
hay.
property.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. So I just, again, just wanted to let you know that I conducted a follow-up visit to ascertain that it was appropriately stabilized as we got into the.
Yeah, he seemed like a nice guy.
Yeah.
Conditions, yes, no, very responsible property owner. Very responsible.
While we're in that part of town, driving by there these days, it's impossible not to notice that on the backside of Old Peichel property, there's huge piles of shellfish shells
Sea clams.
that go up a tree even, part way, several feet. And it seems that is bigger than it's been in the past, or either that it's been relocated, and I'm just curious, the marshland is on the other side of it, and I don't know how far away it is, but I'm just curious as to whether that presents problems.
I've been down on Matt's property, and what Heichel had stored those on the marshland, and what Matt has done is he's actually pulling that stuff off there. And I guess he's gonna sell them or whatever, I don't know. You have to crush those, you can't use those in driveways because it's like
I
glass.
slice the tires.
Yeah. But yeah, he's actually moving them back away from the marsh is what he's done.
Nobody's adding to that?
No.
That we know of?
No. Those were all the old original ones. That was a vast pile that Michael had there.
Sure was.
So what do people do with their clamshells now?
Well,
They
regular
used to
regular
dump them.
clamshells, the shuckers just get rid of them like a, you know, in some of the places, those can use in driveways. These ones here, Michael got paid to take, but, and he's used them around his farm, he used to
I know
crush them up
Herb
with a
does.
bulldozer. Yeah.
And they're quick
And
fixes.
actually Matt's been, you drive over them with a bulldozer, you can break them up. Yeah.
It's good for chickens. Better eggs.
Oh, yes, calcium.
Pigs eat them?
That's one of the few things they don't eat.
Continuing on with another conservation restriction encroachment issue. Subsequent inspection on December 18th on Weathersfield Street, 434 and 438. All the shed materials, the pavers, the fire ring from
Caffarelli.
the Caffarellis, they've appropriately vacated the conservation area, removed that material.
The police chief.
Yeah, so I just wanted to let you know that that's been done.
It's nice when these enforcement orders actually get complied with.
Well, technically, this wasn't an enforcement order because this was an encroachment on CR land, but yeah, this was
It was an
basically,
enforcement action of one kind.
basically,
They did what they needed
you
to
know, a
do.
professional letter that pointed out the problem and requested action to address it. A while back, and I even had to look, because it definitely was a while, the commission received communications and our attention was directed to 320 Central Street, Mr. Cuddy's property, and it sent a letter to Mr. Cuddy in regards to concern about the stockpiling of soils and other landscaping, but mostly the pile of soils that didn't seem to have any type of controls around it. So I sent a letter to him September 4th, and I think within a week, he had actually come into the office and visited me. There was issues going on with Board of Health and mostly with zoning about the fact that a landscaping business was located on that property that wasn't zoned to have the landscaping business conducted on it. Those zoning issues have apparently been resolved. I believe the landscaping business is no longer there. But in the letter, and when I verbally spoke to Mr. Cuddy, I invited him after those things got kind of cleared up to come back and, you know, I appreciate the opportunity to meet with him on the property and see if there were any concerns about the soils that were there. On Monday, Mrs. Cuddy came into the office seeking to sign off on a building permit for putting an 8-foot-high gate and fence along the front of the property, which if you go over 6 feet, you need a building permit. I respectfully declined to sign the building permit, pointing out and providing her with a copy of the letter that there hadn't been any follow-up and there was still a stockpile of soils that I could see driving by, and I just wanted to remind them that I had hoped that we could possibly see if there was anything to be concerned about. Mr. Cuddy came in and visited me in the office this morning, quite animated, but subsequently things calmed down and we ended up having a meeting. He invited me to his property, and we took a look. And I may have to do a little pointing and gesticulating here, but there actually is a situation, runoff coming from the roadway that goes right in front of the soil stockpile and actually was moving sediments and moving them towards the wetlands. This property was historically filled, and so right at the edge of the property line, it drops off approximately 16 to 20 inches into forested wetlands, which even at this time of year was plainly evident by surface water as well as the type and nature of the vegetation. And so, although the material from the soil stockpile did not seem to be migrating, there was definite outwash plain heading down in there.
Is this sort of where the
Yeah,
wetland
that's,
is? There,
yeah,
that's the line.
yeah,
This is
that's
heading
the
this
edge of
way.
the property where it literally drops right down, like I said, 16 to 20 inches. More than likely was historically filled to establish the lot. But there was, you could see a flow path, and you could see the start of, potential gullying where these sediments might make it into the wetlands. His son, who apparently operates a landscaping business, showed up while we were there and understood what I was talking about and my concern in suggesting that either silt sock or straw wattle or something be temporarily put in place because things were frozen right now, but so that later on they could do something like berm it. They told me they were actually looking to get the materials out of there, clean up all the pallets and the other stuff. They were working on that. And they just wished to put up this fence so that it would provide visual screening to the owners on the other side of the roadway who had apparently initiated complaints about them having associated materials on their property. So once I established and had our concerns about erodible materials possibly entering the wetlands and them saying they put in the erosion control, I signed off on the building permit. I just wanted to touch base with the commission tonight. So there had not been any sediment entering the undisturbed or unvegetated wetlands on the abutting property, because again, this fill line for development of the lot is the property boundary.
Right.
So
He
that
asked-
probably comes right off the road, didn't it?
Well, a lot of it is coming off the road, but then you look at their whole front there is all just packed dirt from their activities, so there isn't any vegetation or any opportunity for things to either be slowed down, filtered, or otherwise retained. And so it was doing what water does best, seeking the lowest, easiest path and heading towards the wetlands. So I just wanted to let you know.
Well, that should make the neighbors happy too, to have the fence up.
And of course, our regulations dealing with fencing, talk about it not being an impediment to wildlife travel because they're only putting up a straight line and it's just for visual screening parallel to the road. I hope the commission didn't think I was a little bit presumptive there, but I didn't see how that could be a barrier to wildlife at all. So I signed off on the permit.
Chipmunk could find his way around that if he really wanted to.
Yeah, or a moose. And
They like that.
I like that stuff. Yeah, it's true.
so finally, in the category of various topics dealing with enforcement matters, I believe I handed out a copy of a proposed notice of violation for Mr. David Levitt at 11 Ocean Avenue. This had already been discussed with Doug Watson when the Department of Environmental Protection, who's been dealing with Mr. Levitt in regards to dock which was ordered removed from his property 15 years ago. They requested that the Raleigh Conservation Commission, excuse me, in subsequent investigations of the site, it was discovered that there was another wooden structure erected on the property that appears to be in regulated wetland resource areas for which the commission had not seen an application or issued any type of permit. Because the DEP personnel were allowed by Mr. Levitt to enter onto the property, they actually took some measurements and determined that in their opinion, this structure needed a permit, that it did not fit the exemption for a shed when it's 50 feet or more away from the edge of bordering vegetated wetlands. They measured this shed close, some part of it 38 feet away from bordering vegetated wetlands. Now, this is under the Wetlands Protection Act, and under our local bylaw, this structure is potentially in 2 other regulated resource areas. It potentially is in the buffer zone of an area of critical environmental concern. It may, again, a site visit is needed, so anyway, the reason for the notice of violation letter, just for you to review it, it tries to set forth communicating with Mr. Levitt in an appropriate manner, requesting to meet with him on the property to make sure that it does appear the structure needs permitting. And it also suggests that he consider filing a request to determine applicability, which of course we'll assist him with. I just wanted to make sure that the commission feels this is appropriate. I mean, just because DEP asked us to do it, I believe there is fairly clear evidence that there has been a structure erected in regulated wetland resource areas that requires a permit.
They're pretty, those pictures are pretty, you know, I mean, I can't say I can scale them, but they're,
But if you did,
No, well, and I sort of did, which is, you know, again, part of my normal investigating to make sure that there is a reason
yeah.
for taking
I mean,
action.
this two-roofed thing.
If you look at it, you can see, it's a good possibility, you know?
The scale was, that's a house there, so it's, what did you guess, 10 by 20? A little bigger than just a shed.
Yeah, it depending on how
Did
much
you
of
need
an
a permit
overhang
for-
the roof is.
Do you need a permit for under 200 feet?
Well, you're talking building permit.
Yeah.
No, you do not need a building permit, but that doesn't mean you don't need a permit from Concom.
okay.
Right.
Because the environmental regulations are different and do not address square footage. They address where the structure is located and say if it's a shed,
That one there.
if it's a shed on residential property, and again, that's important too, this is residential property, not commercial property. If it's a shed on residential property and it's 50 feet or more away from the edge of bordering vegetated wetlands. And again, DEP personnel tells me that this is 38 feet away. But then we also have the bylaw considerations too. We don't.
Yeah, so we don't know if it is 10 by 20, it depends on the roof.
Exactly.
Like you said,
Yeah,
depending on the roof
Oh,
overhang.
it doesn't go footprint, it goes by roof?
No, it goes by footprint, but
Oh, yeah.
if you look at that,
Well, but we don't have any criteria
Right,
that
right.
addresses square footage of the structure at all.
We
We
don't
just go
anyway.
by location and
Right.
where it
proximity
is,
to the
proximity
resource.
but we don't really know how big it is.
the actionable
It's
areas.
hard to tell from that picture. So really, you're right, it's site visits once in a while. Have we got any further feedback from the DEP personnel about what they're
No,
going to be doing?
I haven't.
Yeah. One of those things that I'm sure got somewhat slowed down by the holiday. Okay, well, I mean, I think you have to send this. It seems
Right,
like
well, again, I just
the most
wanted to make
reasonable way to
sure
afford
that,
it, yeah.
it, you know, it's not an enforcement order, it's,
It is to be hoped he will consider filing an application.
Is the DEP following up with regard to the dock itself
oh yes, oh yes.
and the floats?
But they haven't yet, we haven't had any further feedback, but they did go out for a visit, right?
Oh,
Along with
yeah.
you were there. So, yep.
they've been on the property, that's how this information of the measurement and the fact that that didn't meet the criteria and the regulations, that it
It's like,
would more than likely require permitting under the wetlands.
we're here for this and, uh-oh.
Kind of obvious, unfortunately.
And it's kind of good that
Well, yeah,
they
it
were on
wasn't
our
there,
side right here.
this was not in evidence in our 2012 pictometry, and it is in evidence in our 2014 pictometry.
The house, the
This
shed.
detached structure, yes.
Alrighty.
Okay.
Is that it for violations, Brent?
Yeah.
Come up with any more? There were a few things left on the agenda, though.
Yes.
On my agenda again. Discussion matters. Selectmen's communication regarding Girl Scout property acquisition. I believe that's the letter I already read into the record. And the other two, I think, Brent, you and I have also briefly discussed. Conservation area boundary markers, and this will be a good one to end on. Equipment for trail property management purposes. So let's take up the boundary markers first.
So, in the past, we ordered the circular no cut, no disturb. We have also recently have the white and black arrows that have been used for trail markers on Hunsley Hills, and also have the potential for possibly being used at Wild Pastures Estates too. I'm kind of getting low on those, so in the interest of possibly getting some more markers, I'd like to make the case for consideration of boundary markers, because I think we've seen recently that we've had some encroachment issues. I can't say that those encroachment issues would have been solved by there being boundary markers, but I would like to make the case that on Hunsley Hills and now on the Girl Scout property, there's going to be an opportunity to utilize boundary markers that will help communicate folks when they're on municipal property at crossing from private property. Because if the town proceeds with active recreational use of the camp facilities, I think it's going to be important that there be something that lets folks know if they're coming from the backside, the Haverhill Street, Smith Lane access to the back of the Girl Scout properties, because that's the biggest part of the acreage. That's 170 plus acres that's not associated with the camp. That would be possibly good for us to have a boundary marker. So, what do we think a boundary marker should possibly say? Well, either in a square, or a circular. I thought the commission might wish to consider the town seal being put in the center, and then the verbiage that I proposed that basically really just, gives the ownership type thing. There certainly are other different things that one could say on it. North Andover has a fairly fancy aluminum disc that also includes the words protected open space. I guess you could say conservation area should convey sort of the same thing. For whatever reason, they have the text saying Town of North Andover twice on it. I think that's a little bit overkill. But, those are samples from a while back. Actually, when we first did the no cut, no disturbance signs.
You don't have those written in beaver, do you?
Maybe you could help us out
I
there.
I was gonna say, they only care that it isn't made out of cellulose, right?
Or that it isn't,
It wouldn't
that
be
it isn't
very
a trap.
digestible. The firm that does the metal disc, though, would do the setup and work with,
Yeah, right.
work with me on actually doing the logo, setting it up, so, so I only have to do this kind of thing. Let's see.
No, I think those words seem fine. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't think people so much notice what the words are.
right.
They just, to get the sense that it's a boundary, and that's the point.
So the question would be,
Do
in the
not
past,
Text in it.
in the past, we, I believe, had ordered in a quantity of 500. Yes, we ordered 500 of the no cut, no disturb signs, which are still useful. Price has gone up a little bit since we ordered in 2011 when we got them at 78 cents a piece. They're now at $1.30 each.
Almost twice as much.
In the wrong
Now, is that for the tin or the plastic?
That's for the aluminum, as the
How
ones
much
like
is the
you're
plastic?
holding.
Yeah.
The plastic, I think I was having kind of a hard time with that.
That's what we've gone to in the Trail
Yeah,
Association.
give me just a second, here.
Instead of that?
Yeah.
How come?
Because of cost.
Because of cost.
Then they hold up very good.
Depending, I guess kind of have to get a quote from them depending upon what the text is that's on them. But it appears. Well, I guess I'd really have to ask them for a quote.
You think they're significantly less?
With, with just, yeah,
Yeah.
I think they would be anywhere from, what did I say on that?
Maybe half.
$1.30, I think you said.
I said $1.30. I think they would be somewhere in the neighborhood of between 60 and 90 cents, but I'd really have to get a quote from them based on what text we wanted. And they, I believe, just do the squares.
Not
But if they just had a single
They do
color.
square and round.
They do round
They do
also in
round.
plastic?
Actually, the round ones, we have a sticky back, so you can put them on an existing,
Yeah.
but that's not good on
Yeah.
trees and outside.
No,
That's
and
good
we
inside
most have one
a,
on trees.
a glassed-in board,
Yeah.
but, the rest of them are all diamonds.
Now, the other thing is I have identified that there were monies appropriated for the management of Hunsley Hills. And Hunsley Hills could also profit by having the boundaries marked, especially on the side of Hunsley Hills that is toward the power line easement. In fact, crosses the power line easement, right there. Because it's definitely obvious that there's a lot of ATV use and other stuff going on up there that you can't tell where the property boundary is. There's at least $2,000 available, and I think trail signage or boundary signage is a management activity.
Yep.
And it's also something that we could also appropriately use on like the Bradstreet property, definitely on the Girl Scout property.
Who has control of that money? Where does it sit?
We do.
We do?
Well, I think it was originally established possibly with the Open Space Committee, but I'd have to research the article. But it's for management activities on Hunsley Hills.
Okay.
So,
Do we know the boundary well enough to mark it?
that's a good question. That's a good question. On the side towards Haverhill Street and where the high tension lines come down, I'm gonna say yes, because I did locate a survey plan. The gentleman that tried to do the housing project, the Chapter 40B project, can't remember what his name was, but that was definitely before I came here, so you can, excuse me. They did a survey and came to some agreement as to what stone walls and stuff, because apparently
And it
there
was
was.
detailed enough, you could tell?
It was detailed enough on a survey plan, because apparently there was some kind of boundary dispute
Mhm.
going on, and it may have been from whoever owned the property prior to the town buying it. But anyway, that section going up the hill, there is a survey plan for the site. And I guess I'd also say from my little bit of experience, that's also the side towards where the trail network is and stuff is, and so seems to be enough stone walls and stuff up there.
Clear quite a few,
And
yeah.
that,
And how accurate would you have to be with the markers anyways? I mean,
well, you don't, because you actually, usually in marking a boundary, if it isn't actually surveyed and blazed, so you know exactly where you are, you usually place your boundary markers a good 3 or 4 feet back
Yeah, you pull it
from
in.
where, and just use
Yeah.
appropriate trees, just so you establish some type of line of sight, so that someone, hopefully with reasonable vision, would see these and know
And
that.
then you get the idea about, you
Exactly.
visualize what
Yeah.
the boundary is.
Yeah. On the Girl Scout property, there's another reason why it would be advantageous to do this now. Because the town had to have the Girl Scout property surveyed, it is very clear at this point in time. We have a very
Right.
good surveyed plan.
Yeah, that's a good
Well,
point.
it's a good time to do it now, before
Yeah.
it starts
Yeah.
getting
Yeah.
overgrown.
Well, as well as the fact that I was out there doing some stuff anyway, and very easily found their transit point, and the flagging is still all up, and I found the iron rods in the ground that they referenced some of the angles on the perimeter with, and plus they marked and designated where some of the drill holes were, or what stone walls.
So it's very clear.
So, well, it would be very appropriate to utilize the condition now to
Right.
do the boundary marking.
Exactly.
Because you would be much more certain that you were doing it.
Well, why don't you
Correct.
find out about the plastic price, and then we'll make a
Get the
decision
quote.
the next time, but if it's like 50% less, we can get twice as many, essentially, almost twice as
Right.
many, then it's worth looking into.
And they're pretty rugged, right?
Oh, yeah,
The PVC or HDPE or something?
Yeah.
I've
it is-
got some in the truck I'll bring into you, well, you want, not gonna be in tomorrow, right?
No, not in the morning.
Okay,
It'll be-
I'll bring it in Thursday.
Because we ran through those first 500 fairly quickly. It would be good to have twice as
Well,
many.
in regards to the metal discs, I've still got a fair
Do you?
amount of those, but this obviously, we should be looking at a larger quantity anyway, just for their use.
Yeah.
I think we ordered 500 of these arrows, and I'm down to like only 100 after doing Huntsley Hills. And so and I also think if we go with the plastic, they come from the same company, I think we then could get possibly a higher piece count, but I think they allow you to mix,
Yeah.
I think,
That'd be good.
so.
Yeah, see, that's what they're made of.
Right.
And they're actually reflective at night.
Well, no, these ones aren't.
These ones are?
These ones aren't. Yes, there are reflective ones, they're a little higher price. The difference in price on a 500-piece order is the reflective ones are 50 cents, and the non-reflective ones are 33 cents.
Oh, well, people shouldn't be out there at night
They
anyway.
really shouldn't. That's a good idea.
They're gonna all get lost.
Yeah, let them get lost in the morning, they'll find them in the morning.
Well, and the white and black shows up pretty well, and I'm also thinking of the yellow and black, because it's very visible.
Right.
So even
Even
in dusk,
Murky condition.
you can see them pretty well because of the
Which is helpful,
contrast.
because that's when people do get lost.
Yeah.
If they stay out a little too late.
So, okay, so I'll work on
All right.
getting definitive quotes on that.
All right.
So the other
The remaining
item I
proposal
wanted
is
to.
equipment for trail property management purposes. This,
Well, okay.
I like this one. I've already seen it.
I would like to propose that the commission consider acquisition of a trail cam. trail camera.
No, this is not the
Including-
one I was thinking.
No, this isn't the one you were thinking of,
No,
sorry.
one more, we have one more to go.
Security camera.
The,
Oh, here it is. I know why.
I was directed to this company's website by the environmental police because I asked them, because I figured they'd use a trail they use trail cameras or whatever. And Officer Griffin actually said, well, go to Trail Cam Pro, look it up. And you can get these with a security box and with a cable. The expenditure for that would actually be, what was it, it was in the neighborhood of like $220, I think.
This one you're showing us is 179.
Yeah.
Maybe you got something.
This is, well, yeah, I was looking at another model that was 149, but this one is a little bit more feature-rich and seems to, they seem, in talking about it in their ratings, they talk about the fact that it takes a couple more batteries, so it keeps charged longer, and also that it has a viewing screen that you can view and see that you've actually captured images right on the camera without pulling the card out of it and having to put the card in something that will read it. For a few dollars more, and it seemed to be pretty well rated. This company also apparently guarantees or warranties these for 2 years if you buy from them, where everybody else just gives you a year, as long as you don't abuse it.
This isn't the system, but I got as a gift for Christmas from my wife, a backyard monitoring thing, similar to doing the same kind of thing. See what's visiting our bird feeder at night and that sort of stuff. Takes pictures. So,
If we buy it,
I'm all in favor.
maybe we can use it.
Well, I've had the dumping issue going on at Hunsley Hills, and
That's what I was just thinking about.
and
Boy, it sure would be nice to.
And it doesn't seem like, you know, where there's money for management of the property, I think there's a very good case to make for an expenditure of a relatively small amount of money to see if we could possibly, now I would, obviously, if you say yes to this, before I order it, I want to have a conversation with the police department to find out if the information that this device would gather, if that would actually, they would consider it usable or whether.
Admissible in a
Well,
legal proceeding?
Well, but more importantly, whether they would take action
Right. I can tell you.
with it, or whether they would just say, well, it's gotta be ours and we've gotta operate it and we've gotta maintain it.
No, they'll take action. Scott Levitt and I used one down for the Red Gate Road. There was a lot of dumping.
Yeah.
And all we needed was a plate number. And that's, they didn't even, they looked at the picture, but all they wanted was a plate number.
Okay.
And they took it from there.
Yeah. Yeah, it would be very satisfying to catch whoever keeps doing that.
Well, I'm all for it.
I was amazed how
If we
fast
can
it
catch
cleaned
'em.
up, too.
Yeah, said the right thing, did they? So, okay, I don't know if you want to do more research, but that sounds like you have support from everybody who's sending that. Everybody agree?
Absolutely.
Yes.
I would suggest if you acquire something like this, then you use a strap, you use something that's not quite as obvious.
Is that black strap there?
Yes.
They have cable that goes.
Yeah, no, that's why I was suggesting the security. They have a steel box that then secured by this big cable, and I think you probably also lag the box onto the trees.
Best thing is just to
so they
hide,
can't just cut.
just hide the whole thing. Doesn't need to be that close.
Yeah.
Yeah, it says the range is 50 to 70 feet, so it doesn't have to be that close.
Well, and also note the size on this too. It's
Yep.
5 by 4 by 2 3/4. It really isn't that big, and they really do
Right.
a fairly good job with how it's painted, so
This
that
looks
it
like a
isn't
piece of
very
camouflage.
obvious.
Yep.
Okay, so I'll proceed with that. So here's the other piece, and this is what, the other piece of equipment that Doug Got a little introductory
I thought this was a pretty cool
talk.
thing.
But this flashes, right, when it takes the picture? No.
No,
infrared.
this kind is infrared. and it
okay,
does-
good.
It doesn't emit
All right.
any type of red glow or anything, which is
Okay.
why it's recommended
Right.
for
But if it
possible
becomes a flash,
security.
someone would just knock it down.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
no flash. No.
Shoot it, that's exactly what they do. They get the shotgun and blow it up
No,
if they knew it was there.
there is a
That's what
chance.
that kind of people do. All right.
So this is a proposal to acquire,
What did you
it's an offshoot of a product that was developed on the West Coast called a weed wrench, which the company has subsequently folded. This is made in Canada, and it's called a polar bear. And there are all different sizes of polar bears. I've just given you a photocopy of one that is recommended for pulling, and they even mentioned buckthorn is apparently a problem on the West Coast as it is here. This will pull stems up to 2 1/4 inches in diameter, pull them out of the ground. Now, this is going to be a necessary and required piece of equipment for finishing or attempting to clear and open Smith Lane and the other loop of the Woods Road on the Girl Scout property because it is so overgrown. I probably gave you a little hint that I've started work on clearing the Woods Road. I'm over 1,000 feet into the Girl Scout property right now as of today, having opened up to where one of the first house foundations, or remnants of a house foundation is, which also happens to be in proximity of where one of the vernal pools were that I documented. So far, the few buckthorn that was in the actual Woods Road, until it recently froze, I've been pulling them by hand because at the most they've been 1/4 of an inch.
Why don't they allow these in Canada?
Oh, they do. They make these in Canada, I
Yeah.
think.
Well, it says not shipped to Canada, and down the bottom, shipped to 49 states, not to California, and none to Canada.
Yeah, I don't know. Oh, but then on the bottom.
Oh, but
it's-
that's the one they're not making anymore.
Right, it's the one on the right that's still in business.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's the one on the right-hand side that is available. They make actually a number of different sizes of them, and this is the size I think that would be appropriate.
So Brent showed, when I was in the office, Brent showed me a video of this. Of course, there's a video now of everything. And it's actually a pretty clever design. You pull back on the bar, the teeth close around the root. So you dig it, you cut it off, you dig down enough to get it onto the root stem, pull back, and that clamps it and then pivots it out, which,
You lever it. It's a lever
yeah, it's a
action.
Oh,
lever.
okay.
Yeah.
You pull back on the arm.
And then,
You can see
It's,
there's sort of a flat plate in the upper
solid base.
right-hand picture. There's a
Right.
flat
So you get a
plate.
grip on it, and then it's just,
Yeah.
you pull on the,
And they tell you
Give it a lever.
for soft soils that you can put a piece of
You probably
plywood
need
or
a
a
lot
board
bigger
to
butt
spread
plate
it
than
out.
that, yeah.
yeah, if the
Because-
soil's
Yeah.
soft, if you don't have a
Yeah.
rock.
It's just gonna pull down.
Or your toe.
Yeah, or your toe, if you have steel-toed boots on, that's
How would
right.
it be for knotweed?
You know, it would work on anything if you.
Yeah, but
grip on
knotweed,
So close.
buckthorn, you can actually pull the root system out and that kills it. With knotweed, any of the little rootlets that break
Yeah,
off
it
just
just
end up
encourages it.
resprouting. So it's really, you cannot pull
Darn.
knotweed. And this is mostly because I know further down on Smith Lane, as it gets into the heart of the Girl Scout property, it is just socked right in with buckthorn.
And I don't know of another way to get that stuff out. Digging it out with a shovel,
Well, the
that's a
problem,
nasty job.
buckthorn, somebody already asked us when we were gonna mow
Right.
the Woods Road, Smith Lane, and I said, and I was asked to comment to the selectmen, and I said, no, that's absolutely the wrong thing to do, because buckthorn, as soon as you cut it, if you leave a viable root system in the ground, it sprouts twice as bad.
Yep.
does all sorts of little sprouts, not just one sprout, it sprouts multiple stems. And actually, I could see when the work I started doing on the road, some of the ones I was pulling, they were a couple different stems because the ATVs had snapped them and they responded to that just as if they'd been cut. So this would be a small expenditure, again, relatively speaking. I think the total price, the $99 and the $35 shipping and handling, I think the total is $134.99. Depending upon what the exchange rate with Canada is, it could even be a little less, since I think the dollar had been increasing in value as compared to the Canadian dollar recently.
Yep. I think it's a good idea.
Me too.
Brent's gonna carry this thing around in his truck and, not truck, and just attack every buckthorn he sees.
Well, hopefully
Whip
we'll
it out when you-
try to get some scouts and stuff involved here.
Right.
since,
It does weigh, what did we were looking at this, right? It weighs 14 pounds, so
Well,
you're not
yeah.
talking about a lightweight piece of equipment here, exactly.
Sort of hefty.
Work on poison ivy, greenbrier.
I don't know that they have a single stem, a pullable root system, so. I think the stem actually has to have a little bit of substance to it for these jaws. I think otherwise they just shred whatever you.
Right.
That's why I'm reaching down and just hand pulling the small little ones at this point in time, because that's all I've encountered, but that also allows them to be yanked out without them breaking off or being cut. Okay. That's it for all
All right.
my requests, so that's
Well,
that
I
okay.
think that sounds good
Okay,
to me.
acquisition also?
I agree. Yep. I want you, if you get it and you haven't gotten it all muddy, I want you to bring it to a meeting so we can all see what we voted for.
Moving on.
Yeah,
14 pounds.
We can all have a hand.
As long as they don't have to bring a victim in with it, right?
No,
A
no.
dead buster.
A dead buster. A trophy. Yeah, we're gonna pin it up to the wall up there.
yeah. Bring in a sample.
Show and tell.
Raise it out.
Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn? A second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All against? Motion carries.
Doug, were you affected
weeks.
by that water main breakage last week?
Mm-mm.